Hey everyone, it's Victor here, and today I'm going to take you along with me and my partner Teddy on our trip to London. We had to go down there for boring administrative reasons, but because it was close to our anniversary, we decided to make a trip out of it. Our first stop after we arrived at Euston Station was the British Museum. Now, I'd never been before. In fact, this is only my second time in London in my whole life, so everything is new to me, to be fair. And I'll admit I was both nervous and excited, which turned more into nervousness because we had to go through a very extensive bag search at the start before we could even get in. And we had luggage to last us for 2 nights in London, so that was awkward to say the least, but very necessary of course, and I'm glad that safety is a priority for visitors. Anyway, we made it inside, and I will admit I was kind of blown away. The sheer scale of the place and the exhibits nearly brought me to tears. I mean, that doesn't take a lot. I'm a Pisces moon, Pisces rising, but that doesn't mean anything really. It was overwhelming. It was amazing. I couldn't even wrap my head around the sheer amount of stuff there was in there. I love history, and seeing so much of it just laid before you on a platter this large was astounding. The main downside was it was very busy, which I suppose in a way is good. I'm glad people are interested in history and artifacts and learning about the world. More on that later. It's kind of foreshadowing for something else I'm going to say. But oh boy, I was overwhelmed. I did manage to slow down and take in a lot of the exhibits, but after a time, Teddy and I got to a point where we really needed to get out of there. Especially during the ancient Egyptian section where I mean, Teddy didn't even go in. He has kind of a phobia of that, like mummies and things. But I love all that stuff, so I couldn't even move when I was in there. I couldn't even spend any time looking at anything because I felt like I was going to be crushed by the sheer amount of people that were in there. And it was very low lighting, and I swear there was this really strange banging noise coming from what I could only see was one of the sarcophagi, so that was scary, but kind of intriguing. Figure that one out. Ghosts. Where's Brendan Fraser when you need him? But the irony is, going back to me talking about people being interested in history, after a little bit of people watching, I started to realize that a lot of the visitors weren't really looking at the exhibits. Like, I know this is so ironic because this is a vlog. I vlogged my trip to the museum. I can't really talk. But the amount of people who didn't even look at things, got a picture taken next to it, and then quickly left and went on to the next thing, into the next room, it was weird. It didn't sit right with me. These people are just like tourists in this museum, and they just want to post a picture on Instagram and say, oh my god, I'm so educated, look at me standing next to this thousands of year old thing, like and subscribe. Oh my god, I know it's so ironic that I'm saying this in a vlog. The beauty of my vlogging, I'm gonna try and back myself up here, is that I use a teeny tiny camera called Osmo, who I hold at body level while my eyes are free to see what I want to, and I take my time to look at things. I'm not looking through the camera lens. I'm just bringing you along with me like you're my little robotic friend in my hand. I'm looking at things and enjoying it. Anyway, we had to skedaddle out there and we were getting super hungry. So we checked into our apartment and immediately got food. And it's weird, right? Speaking of not knowing what I filmed, I'm so sure I filmed my food, but can I find the clip? No. So we ordered prezzo and ate that while watching the Queer Eye new season, and oh my god, I always cry at Queer Eye, I love it so much. But then we decided to go on a dessert hunt and go to this bagel place we'd seen up the road. But when we got there, even though they said they closed in an hour on the website, they were taking the chairs in and wouldn't let us order anything. So here's our sad bagel faces. So then, with sad bagel faces, we went back to our apartment and slept. We'd done a lot of walking that day and traveling, so we were pretty tired. The next morning was the day Teddy had his appointment, which was the whole reason for this trip in the first place. So we got a Leon breakfast. Thank God there was a Leon right next to where we were staying. Honestly, they do the best coffee and their big breakfasts are so good. I'm craving one right now. We then walked over to the Piccadilly area. We were trying to do a lot of walking because we tried to save money not going on the underground. But it was nice because we got to see a lot of the decorations for Chinese New Year, which was going on when we were there. It was a really nice atmosphere. When we arrived, we wandered round Waterstones for a little while before Teddy's appointment, and it was the biggest Waterstones I had ever seen. This place was multi-leveled, like everything in London. Everything's bigger, everything's better, everything's more expensive. But this is the biggest Waterstones I have ever seen. It was bafflingly nice. And I was very good. I resisted and didn't buy anything, even though it was very tempting. So we wandered around the Waterstones for about 15 minutes before Teddy had to leave me on my own for a grand total of 20 minutes, which is hilarious considering this whole trip surrounded those 20 minutes. So while Teddy was having his appointment, I basically died of happiness in Fortnum and Mason's. I have never had so much serotonin in my body. I was living. This place was gorgeous. Again, I'd never been, but the connection with Black Butler and the Royal Blend teas, and the idea that the Funtum Company sounds a lot like Fortnum, just the letters mixed around a little bit, made my little weeb heart so happy to finally be here. It's so sad, isn't it? It's so sad. Honestly, this place is basically straight out of a movie or something. The staff were all so polite and dressed in a very formal, quite butlery way. The place smelt really good. I suppose that might have been the sweets and the tea and the coffee. The coffee was the strongest smell. It was so good. It was so clean and well presented, and the sound of classical music was swaying gently in the background. It just felt so classy and elegant. I felt urged to go into debt and buy everything. There's definitely drugs in the air in there. I didn't actually explore every level of the building. There was so much more to see, but we had a few other things on our list that day, but I did manage to go upstairs to look at all the tea sets. Oh, the tea sets. Thank God I kept my cool, because I literally felt like Haruhi and the fancy tuna, I am not going to lie. I was sobbing over the beauty of these. Like, I got goosebumps walking around here. I don't usually, I'm not a materialistic person. I don't usually get thrilled by going into shops, but this was a different level. Can I apologize for the fact that my Osmo camera did not focus on anything? I don't know why his autofocus wasn't working, but I couldn't check at the time because his screen is so tiny, and DJI stopped supporting Google phones as monitors, so there was no way I could tell if things were in focus until now when I'm editing this. So yeah, not great. Also, DJI, thanks a absolute bunch of bananas that you stopped supporting Google phones, because thanks so much for that. Anyway, my beef with DJI aside, let's get back to the vlog. The sweets and the marzipan fruits and it just had this old-fashioned, very British, very high-class feel to it, and I didn't actually want to leave. I wanted to try and blend in with the silverware and stay there forever. I did then buy some things, but I actually bought nothing for myself. I only bought gifts for other people, so I think that's okay. We then ended up going to see Big Ben, because of course you have to, and I'd never seen him before. He was quite big. Indeed. We then walked along the Thames and eventually got to the London Eye, and the London Eye is so much bigger than I thought it would be. It's huge. I got that weird phobic thing where you look at something really big and it's like, that shouldn't be so big, I'm terrified. Yeah, I didn't get that with Big Ben, only with the London Eye. I was like, ooh, this is awe-inspiringly large. And then we got to the Globe, and oh my gosh, I've always wanted to see the Globe. I didn't get to go inside, but it's always been a dream of mine to see a Shakespeare play there, maybe one day. We then went around a few back streets and eventually ended up next to this amazing shipbuilding project called the Golden Hind, which was a reconstruction of the first English ship to sail around the globe. It was amazing. I was not expecting to find something like this just in the back street of London. I was quite in awe of the work they're doing. I hope it continues. We then did a little bit more wandering, walked past loads of really iconic buildings. The architecture here is incredible, a mix of the modern and the very, very ancient. Came across this really interesting sculpture thing, very piratey, very steampunk. I actually didn't get the artist's name, but I'll pop it up on screen here after I do a little bit of research because I recognize the style. I think it was a working fountain, some kind of animatronic. It's incredible. It really took me off guard. We then decided that we were starting to get very hungry and very tired, so we walked up to Tower Bridge and decided to try and find somewhere to eat. Tower Bridge in itself was beautiful to witness. By this time, my legs and my hips were killing me from walking, so we ended up getting the underground. We got so lucky there was no one in our carriage. I was totally expecting to be crushed like a sardine in a tin. Speaking of fish, no, I don't mean Teddy. We stopped at Hobson's Fish and Chips, which was just outside of our subway stop, which was Embankment. It was so good, and it was great because the server that welcomed us was LGBT+, and it instantly made me feel happy and safe, and I had a really great time. They did gluten-free. It was so great. Next on the agenda was the National Portrait Gallery. As you can see, me and Teddy enjoy museums and galleries. We wanted to fill this trip with as many things as we could do as possible because we're not here for long. We were there for 2 nights and we wanted to make the most of it. When I tell you I was blown away by the Portrait Gallery, I mean it. There are some paintings in there I never thought I'd be able to see in person. It was incredible. I felt so overwhelmed with the sheer amount of fine art that surrounded me. Teddy had a really good time too, although the one thing I will say, especially when we got into the Van Gogh exhibition room, it was overwhelmingly busy. It was horrifically busy. We felt like we couldn't even breathe. I put my mask on at one point because people were coughing and sneezing and everyone was really close together, and I started to get a bit paranoid, and I basically said to Teddy, let's get out of here. So we didn't get to see everything, but what we did see, we absolutely loved. So when we left, we walked back in the twilight hours, taking in the atmosphere of the city lights and architecture that framed the sky. We were very full of fish and chips, but one thing was preying on our minds: the bagel shop. So before we went back to our apartment, we managed to pick up some hazelnut chocolate and pistachio cannoli, which I ended up not liking at all. It was way too sweet, like burns your mouth with sugar kind of sweet. So Teddy very kindly ended up helping me finish mine. He's much better with sweet things than I am. Oh yeah, and you know that nice bag I got from Fortnum & Mason? The rain killed it. I was hoping to keep it as a souvenir, but oh well. Oh, also to save on packing space, because we were only staying there for 2 days, I didn't bring any shampoo and conditioner, so I had to salvage my hair with dry shampoo. I do not like doing that, but sometimes you have to.
Is it salvageable? Who knows? Possibly with enough dry shampoo and belief in yourself, you can do anything. with a bit of rusties and an insane amount of luck, you too can look like me. Ka-chow.
So then it was the morning of our final day in London. We were very rudely awoken by very loud roadworks next to our window. Which wasn't ideal. But we got ready, checked out, and went to the quietest Starbucks I've ever experienced. But this last day was the day I was particularly excited about, because we were going to the Sherlock Holmes Museum. Now, Holmes has been a hugely important figure in my life. When I was in a really dark place after leaving high school, reading Sherlock Holmes gave me strength and made me want to be like him. I worshipped this man since I was 16 years old. So visiting 221B was almost like a pilgrimage for me. And apart from being blindly misgendered by the guy who took my tickets at the door, he called me Marm. Marm! Anyway, it's much smaller than I imagined, and unfortunately I wasn't allowed to film in there, but we could take pictures. I do recommend going, but if you're claustrophobic, just be aware that there's not much space, and there was a lot of tourists in there, especially in the gift shop. Teddy ended up treating me to a few things in there, including a set of Sherlock silhouette cufflinks. I love them so much, and they'll always remind me of this little trip. We then got a bit peckish and went to a little cafe called the Good Life Cafe, where I had a chicken wrap and Teddy had an avocado toast. It was really nice. We didn't have super long before we had to catch our train back home, which was sad, but on our walk back through the mass of really expensive flats that were like worth £20 million, I looked them up on Zoopla, we came across a place called the Wallace Collection. We nearly didn't go inside because we only had around half an hour to spare, but thank God we did. The famous paintings in there that I never thought I would see in real life, just like the National Portrait Gallery. I was living my best life. Once again, I found myself absolutely blown away by the beauty of this place and the artifacts within it. And the aesthetic of the rooms, I mean, I was in heaven. It is absolutely 100% worth the visit, and I wish that we had had more time to explore. The Armory collection in the lower level was particularly mind-blowing. I could have stayed there for hours. But sadly, that is where our trip had to end. So we left and caught our train back home. I really hope we can go back soon. I didn't expect to love London this much. I'm not really a city person, but something about it just feels different. I could never live there, but it's really great to visit. And it ended up being much quicker to get there than I initially anticipated. I'm so used to traveling back and forth from Scotland, which is an all-round 5-hour trip, that a 2-hour train journey literally feels like nothing. I've made some really special memories, and I'm so glad we made a proper big trip out of an errand we had to do. Thank you so much for coming along with us, and thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you very soon.